All right, like you said, I'm from sunny South Florida, but that's not my origin. I am a transplant to Florida. So I'm actually from Central Missouri, and I spent about 8 years hanging out in Kansas City, working for a national contractor, and really was in the VDC world from the time I started my career. And then someone from South Florida called and said, hey, you want to come down here? And I was like, yes, I do. So fast forward 2019, I moved to South Florida, West Palm Beach, to work for KAST Construction, and that's where I've been ever since for the last 6 years. And they are a strictly South Florida builder. So we have 3 offices and basically pretty small outfit. But I am one of 3 VDC managers. So I'm a senior VDC. I think we have one other senior VDC that supports basically Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And then we have another VDC manager who supports our Tampa office. So those are kind of the areas. And then we have a director over us, and occasionally he works and does what we do. But for the most part, we are the mighty little group. A little more about me. My background is I'm an architectural engineer by school, but I also have a drafting and design technology degree, which is why I really went into the VDC career instead of going into engineering. I had a professor in college who scared the crap out of me, and so I thought that was not the route to go. So anyway, went into the VDC side of things, and really, so from working in Kansas City, I was really supporting all of our regions. So that was West and East and Southeast. So worked on a lot of different jobs in a lot of different states and a lot of different sectors. So it was anything from hospitality to government to data centers, hospitals, ranging on size, a lot of schools, higher education, some elementary schools. And then when I got to South Florida, that all changed. And I started working really on the private side. So doing high-rise, multifamily, residential, and then also hospitality and a little bit of like government and stuff kind of mixed in there. So outside of there, I love staycationing in Florida. You never actually have to leave Florida. That's pretty much a little bit about me. And I figured since I'm bringing Florida to you today, I would take you on a little journey. And we're gonna do just a little profile about KAST, but I'm gonna spend a little extra time and giving you a geographic lesson. If any of these facts are incorrect, you can blame the internet, because I'm not from Florida, but I can attest to a lot of it. And then definitely wanna show you how, basically how all the factors that we have down in Florida, from the coastline to the atmosphere to all the weather, all the challenges that we have, basically how we use cmBuilder to address that. And then we'll save a little bit of time for some Q&A. All right, so KAST Construction, I mentioned they're South Florida based. We've got a few offices, but basically we've only been around 20 years. So someone mentioned 100-year companies. We're not even close. We're a pretty young company. But basically we started as the person who started KAST Construction, and they basically were a builder of single-family homes. They decided, hey, we basically want to start our own general contracting company, and we want to start building high rises. And so that's how KAST was started. Now we are owned by a collection of people that all hold titles within the company, and basically continuing to try to grow our company throughout South Florida and looking into some different markets, which I'll get into a little bit. But in South Florida, we're recognized as one of the top 3 builders and have won some of local project awards. But basically, we're always looking at ways we can innovate. And so that's why I'm here today, is because we've been using cmBuilder for like the last 3 years, 2 or 3 years, give or take. And I wanted to see how we can leverage it more but then also how can we leverage it more for our field? I've taken away a lot of stuff already from what you guys have presented, so thank you for that. But these are kind of some of the projects that we build, and why it's important for us to use cmBuilders, because everywhere that we're building is pretty much an urban area. So downtown West Palm, downtown Miami, downtown Fort Lauderdale, downtown Tampa, St. Pete, Sarasota, all the way down in Naples. And then there's a really good project that I'm going to show you about that's in Cocoa Beach, which is very close to Cape Canaveral. So we basically are building our luxury residential. Those are high-rise condos, the hospitality side of things. So that could be hotels. It could also be a combination of a condo and hotel. And then obviously in the multifamily, we're doing garden-style apartments and also high-rise apartments. So a lot of mixed-use development kind of goes in with that as well. All right, so here's the fun Florida facts. I call them the Sunshine State fun facts. Basically, every day we have 1,000 people moving to Florida. Most of them are coming from the Northeast. Especially after COVID, we got an onslaught of people that came down from New York. So construction never slowed down for us. So I think that's a fun fact to mention. The other piece is we are the lightning capital, basically, of the US. We have the highest concentration of lightning strikes. And that is a very true fact. Even in the last recent week, there's been at least 3 lightning strikes that have happened on local beaches. As soon as I hear thunder, I'm running inside. We are water paradise. Obviously, there's lots of boating and fishing. If you've ever been down there, you've got charters pretty much on every side. But even internally, right, there's lots of lakes, so lots of things to do. And then the entertainment world. Has anybody been to, the Mouse, the Walt Disney World, Universal, New Epic? So obviously lots of construction going on there. I will say we do not work in there. So a lot of considerations go into basically where we build, what we build, and some of that obviously it's kind of depicted by the location of where you are. So we have 13,000 miles of coastline. Obviously the only part that doesn't is this part that connects up to Georgia and a little bit of Alabama. We have 7,500 lakes and ponds, which means there's lots of water that we have to build around, and 12,000 miles of waterways. So that's rivers, streams, and canals. So lots of water. A lot of topography consideration is that Florida's flat. So that's why I also was excited to come here. So I could see some mountains and a little change in scenery, but I would say the tallest thing that you'll see in Florida is where we send our garbage. But most of our areas are basically near at sea level, and we also have a very shallow water table. So it's typically 10 to 15 feet, but that can be also less. So we could be at 5 feet. And we need to take that into consideration, obviously, with all our job sites. This also creates very unique challenges for foundations. So we are basically building on a giant sandbox. So you'll see further in the presentation, I'll give some more examples of that. But all of that to say, that's how we're using cmBuilder to kind of solve some of these problems, planning for things like dewatering. Climate considerations. So, in the wintertime, let's say my favorite months, January through March, the weather's perfect. I would say that's the time to come. That's also when all the snowbirds are there, so it's very busy. But on average, we're about 72 degrees. However, in the summertime, we experience the rainy season. So that lasts basically the whole entire time of hurricane season. So that's from May to November. And that is when basically we don't really know what's going to hit. It could be hitting on the Gulf side, it could hit on the Atlantic side, but those are things we have to prepare for in the logistics plan and with our safety team. The other two pieces are the heat. So in the summertime, it can be like 100 degrees, but with humidity added in, you're looking at like a heat index of over 100. So it's extremely hot, it's extremely moist, and so in some cases you need to plan for heat recovery for your project teams, and making sure that they're hydrated and staying hydrated and that they're not passing out because they've had a heat stroke or something. The other piece is wind. So obviously you can get a hurricane, but you could also get like a tropical storm. Tropical storms still bring anywhere from like 30 to 50 mile an hour winds. So you always have to have your construction sites prepared for that. So you really have to take into consideration all of the climate, even when it's not good. And then the fun, unforeseen things that we run into. This is my friend, Mr. Gator. I don't know, he's like kind of smiling or something. But I add that because the wildlife is protected, a lot of it in Florida. So you really have to make sure that you're accounting for that. So maybe that could be, let's say, the turbidity barriers that you add in. Obviously, cmBuilder has that. Protecting the manatees, protecting the alligators, protecting owls. I mean, burrowing owls. If you guys saw that Tom Hanks episode about the Americas, didn't even know that was a thing, but they are protected. So there's a lot of things you kind of have to build around and be cognizant of. Existing site conditions. So in Florida, contaminated soils is pretty common. A lot of existing utilities and other unknowns, so you kind of have to roll with those. Obviously, you're going to have design issues where you have errors and omissions, so you have to kind of plan and mitigate risks there. And then in Florida, I would say more so on the staffing shortage, not so much material, but staffing shortages, just lack of qualified trade partners. That's always a challenge. So how do we tackle all those things? And that's basically through the use of technology. So we basically have a stack that all integrates with each other. And that was pretty important to us because we just want to make sure that everything talks to one another. You have a lot of options out there, obviously, that don't. So obviously Drone Deploy, Autodesk, cmBuilder, Procore, and I like to throw in a little Adobe in there. So basically, we're taking all of the information that we can get out of those technology platforms and developing our logistics plans. So really starts with capturing existing conditions. So like in this example, this is one of the new markets we're trying to get into. So recertification. If you guys heard about the Surfside collapse that happened a few years back, that basically reignited a lot of condo associations to reevaluate basically the needs for the future of the condos. So that opened up a ton of work. And so I was like, how can we use cmBuilder to depict that of what we would do on a recertification project? So we flew it with the drone site, or with the drone deploy, and basically used that to figure out all the exterior and interior work that we would do. Built it using only the drone models, right? Because you didn't have any design models to go off of. The next piece is obviously planning 3D and 4D. I would say we do a lot of 3D. 4D is less. So the 4D aspect, we just got a scheduling director about a year ago. We had kind of been sans one. So that kind of was a little bit of a miss, but we're getting into the side of the 4D where we can actually bring in an Oracle schedule. And then obviously taking this information in cmBuilder and developing it more for the safety and all the hazards that we have in Florida. So I thought I'd give you two examples. One is what I'm calling the skyscraper, and then I'll show you another example of the Sandcastle. But this project is in downtown West Palm Beach. This is the Mr. C Residence and Hotel. That's Cipriani. They have a local chain, I think on the East Coast. I'm not sure where else they are, but I know they're building another one pretty similar in Miami. This is mixed use, so basically these lower floors going all the way up to about right there is condos, and then the upper level is all hotel. So we do have 2 pools, one on the podium deck above the parking garage, and then one at the very top, kind of where you saw those trees. So this project really was just getting started like 2 months ago, and it's still ongoing, obviously, but one of the things that we wanted to demonstrate in cmBuilder was all of the demo and then some of the contaminated soil that we needed to remedy. So we basically just used zones. It's pretty basic, but at the time I was like, well, not sure how else we were going to show this other than just taking parts of the drone and deleting them or making some box, right? So we basically just showed that by using some zones. And as we were demoing, a lot of the conversation was revolving around some of the things that we needed to keep, which included these historic trusses, and then there was these like columns. I don't know why they wanted to keep them because they didn't really look that great, to be honest. But basically we had to save those, and then they're using those in the new design. So part of that was the selective demo is figuring out, okay, where are we going to take these? Where are we going to store them? Because it is Florida and it's wood. So there's, obviously some moisture concerns. Same with the columns. So those ended up getting hauled off site somewhere else. And basically they'll be incorporated back into the building once we actually start building it. So we're not quite there yet. Moving on, the other piece that we had to figure out is our piling and grouting. There was like, how do you want me to show this chemical grouting? I mean, I could go into depth to show a bunch of piles and show how we actually do it, or we could just do like a 3D line. It's pretty basic, but intuitive enough, and just kind of add some text in here. And then we did talk about doing pile lagging, and this was a couple months ago. That's since been taken out of the scope. They're just going to do some regular piles, sheet piles. So we kind of walked through those steps, trying to figure out how do we want to show this in cmBuilder. And then we started actually bringing the building up, which I'll say this is also outdated. So I learned like the week before I went on vacation that, oh, we're only going to build this portion on the south side here for the first part. So we're going to build part of that podium because it's a very small footprint. We need to use the other side for our laydown. So this other section over here, they're actually going to bring up once they get to the 8th floor deck. But the beauty about it with cmBuilder is once I'm back, I'll be able to actually go in there and update this to show that. The other piece is they determined that this crane location will not work, which we went round and round many different crane configurations, working with our subcontractor, Baker Concrete, trying to figure out where the best placement for these cranes would be, given that we have existing towers around us, and then something that's not currently shown, but there is going to be a brand new tower going up right across the street. So we're going to have a bit of a battle when it comes to our tower cranes and also all of our deliveries. So we had to come up with a plan that basically was going to help us in the long run, and that meant basically breaking out this tower portion and breaking out the podium. So that's more to do for me later. So basically, once we got up to the top, we wanted to show all the different floors where we basically were going to have all of our outrigger netting and showing our jumps. And I skipped a bunch of slides in here because it shows all the same things you guys have seen before. And then at every project, we like to do a little topping out party like most people do, but sometimes ours involves a palm tree, and then sometimes it involves an American flag. But that's basically it on this project. I think the biggest thing here is that for cmBuilder, for us, it really helped us to determine like where the best placement for our tower cranes was going to be. And then also talking with our subcontractors in the early stages of pre-con, we were really wanting to dive into their scope. So we would pull this model up and basically use it to have those conversations and figure out, like, do you guys understand the scope? Are there scope gaps that we need to address? and then we would make changes. So that was kind of, I think to me, one of the best stories out of this. And that's kind of the finished product here. So you can kind of see the roof up here. And then there'll be a significant cooling tower up here on this part. And then I'll say that somewhere here, there will be another building. And whatever that looks like. All right, so Sandcastle project. Now this one I'm heavily involved in at the current moment. I'm the main VDC manager for it. So I'm doing all the coordination, all the logistics, the mock-up, you name it, anything 3D, I'm the one touching it. So I thought this would be a really good example to show. This is in Cocoa Beach. This is going to be a Westin Resort and Convention Center. So the hotel side of things, it's only about 6 levels. It's on a 15-acre site right on the beach in Cocoa Beach. And it's going to have about 502 hotel rooms, plus the convention center and a parking garage. The coolest thing about this project, I would say, is that it is in direct path of Cape Canaveral. So you can actually watch all the flights take off, all the rockets. My first day that I went to go kick off this project, the owner of this project also owns the Hilton next door. So as I was walking in, I felt the earth shaking beneath my feet. And I was like, what's happening? And then I looked up and I saw the rocket taking off. So it's pretty cool to be able to see that on your first day. So this is basically the site. We have basically the full extent here, except for one existing building here called the Marlin. They didn't sell out, so they still have some rentals. But basically everything else that was here was like old rundown hotel, hadn't been used in a while. To this north side here, you've got Lori Wilson Park, which basically remains active and open the whole entire time. And then they've got like a public beach area over here. So for us, the way this project basically gets broken down into is Convention Center is up here on the north side. You kind of see the outline a little bit of the tower, kind of forms like this U shape. And then the lower level down here is basically part of the CEP, and then your parking garage here. So you'll see it more in a couple other slides. But some of the earliest work that we needed to figure out was we had the chambers. So the storm chambers, I think somebody did an example of it earlier. I really wish I would have known that content was out there. Or else can you share it? Because I was like, I don't know how we're going to show this. So I basically used some zones again, called out all the work that we were going to be doing. But because it's such a big site, this chamber work had to start like immediately. And it's right in the middle of the site. So that made an extra complication because deliveries can only go so far. And we need to be back here. So we had a side road basically running along Lori Wilson Park, where we were able to bring in most of the deliveries here and basically start building the tower, which is right through here. Now the other piece of this is that we have a tunnel that would go underneath. That tunnel is basically to support each of the sides and allow all the workers underneath to be able to go back and forth to all the restaurants and cleaning crew and all the things. So the first thing was that basically we had to get in all the sheet piling, addressing obviously getting all the water out of there because that was the first thing that we were going to build. And then the other thing, as all that work is ongoing, we also had dune work. So we had to build up this dune basically so that way, should a hurricane or something come in this way, there's a little bit of protection. Really the dunes are what help to slow down hurricanes, storm surge. So all in all, like basically this is the whole outline of our site. We started with the sheet piles and I wanted to show just some actual photos of the site. And when they say it's a sandbox, they mean it's a sandbox. And our project team, they like to call themselves the castaways. So they're kind of out, they feel like they're out here on an island. But this is basically what the site looked when we started just digging the hole. And water immediately fills up. So that's why sheet piling was so important. And then obviously starting that dune work, because that dune work is going to continue all the way through the project. So once we got past all of our sheet piling and we start getting our tunnel in, we started working on foundations. And really the tower is what was going to go first. I kind of just broke this out because technically this project started in 2020. I had already done this logistics plan in a 4D software back in 2020. And so I kind of broke this down as smaller milestones since I had to redo it twice. And just kind of showed some general things, basically starting with your site mobilization, your foundations, and then working up your structure to completion. It was just enough information for us to be able to communicate, obviously, to our team what we were going to do. But we basically had 3 to 4 sheet pile, not sheet piles, but pile drivers going on at the same time, working so that we could start our foundations. And then you can see here, this is kind of like where the tunnel work is ongoing. Foundations that were butting up like right against the foundation. But you can obviously see here, we had our sheet piles, look nice and dry. And then this. The water always finds a place to come. So there could have been a rain or something just happened here. So just wanted to kind of note that unique things about Florida. You have a plan and it doesn't always go according to plan. So you should have a backup plan. And then from basically here, we have the structure up. And then in this phase, like I thought it was cool that I was able to actually show some outrigger netting, which is already built into cmBuilder before I had to model that from scratch. And in this project, so we have basically the tower, which is all post-tension, but you're supporting a lower convention area, and the CEP is all structural steel. And then I'll mention this, but the parking garage is precast. So we had 3 different types of structure going on at the same time, or will be going on at the same time. The steel hasn't quite started yet. But basically in the beginning, we said, okay, well, most of our traffic's going to go around the back, but then once we get the tower up, now our main traffic needs to be going through here, and we can utilize some of this area where the parking garage is for laydown. But it basically opened up this area for us to be able to bring traffic in and out. And then it's pretty easy just to show a couple hoists in here, but we had to put them on this side just so that we have access to them, because if we put them on the back side, the problem is we're going to have a pool here. We're going to be working in this area, so putting the hoist on that side didn't make sense. And eventually there also is a spot area back here. We wouldn't be able to access this road for much longer. While we were doing this, I guess I should mention there's a little bit of interior work going on, but that also isn't happening yet in real life, because this is basically the current stage of where we're at with construction. So we've basically built this whole kind of south wing, kind of going into this bridge area. You can see like the storm chamber work is kind of wrapping up here in the middle, and eventually it's going to move to the sides where there's a couple other areas. And we have started our slab on grade, at least in this area, and working to build up this whole CEP, and then the convention center will kind of be our last and final area. And there's a picture of our actual netting, supporting, basically making sure safety-wise we didn't have anything blowing over onto that Marlin building, which is existing, still active, and people walking by there going to the beach. And then as we kind of close out, we finish up with like the pools. Your dune work is still ongoing. And we basically are starting to build this garage, which I mentioned is precast. So that would be kind of the last component here. There's also going to be a wave pool where you can actually surf. First of its kind, they say. So supposed to simulate real waves. And then envelope interior pretty much just continues on here, but we just wanted to kind of show the next phase of this, of kind of completion to where we get to the final stage, which is just kind of showing our site work, which shows kind of the pool and your fountain area and kind of the drive up. So that's pretty much what it will look like when it's finished. The best part about, I think, this project is that, you know, they took a lot of care into kind of considering the orientation of it to the beach, and then paying a lot of homage to the Space Coast. So there's a lot of little things in there that will be super cool for people who are space enthusiasts. And the coolest part, I think, is a lot of times, like in the VDC world, like I don't know how many hours I spent on that particular logistics plan since I did it twice. But I went out on the job site, I don't know, like a month before May, and it was basically looking like this at the time. Went up on the deck, went to go see some issues that they were having, and I was staying down at this little hotel at the corner. And so after the job site was over, I was like, hey, I'm just gonna walk, I'm gonna take a stroll on the beach, right? I'm gonna go check out what it actually looks like at nighttime, take it in, grab a little sunset pic of all the work that I've done so far in this project. Not just the logistics plans, but also all the coordination, and catch a little sunset photo. So I highly encourage finding joy in the things that you do, because otherwise it just sucks. So basically for us using cmBuilder, we're just trying to enhance and execute like what we want to convey, right? So we want to streamline, we want to collaborate, we want to be able to take design models and easily input them in, even with updates. And we want to be able to make decisions based on that information. So in a nutshell, that's basically what we're trying to do with cmBuilder. And then my future goals, and something that's kind of already in action, is really working with our scheduling department. So they have been doing some task planning, trying to get everybody trained there, where they were actually building some hands-on logistics plans, which I thought was cool. Taking it a little old school here for us to then take it new school, hopefully. We started developing an in-house cmBuilder startup tutorial, like basically steps for if anybody didn't know how to come into cmBuilder and use it, here are the steps you would need. I actually emailed the cmBuilder team and said, hey guys, do you guys have any tips or tricks? Like how can we, implement this? And they sent me a whole list of things. So I was like, all right, great. That helps a lot. So we're currently in the stages of cross-referencing that, making some edits, have put it through some testing with some of our users to say, what are you guys' thoughts? Is this intuitive enough? Is this easy enough for you to follow? Because at the end of the day, we do want more superintendents and more project managers getting in here, because right now it's just us, and it buries us when we have other, pressing work to do. And then the last piece would be to actually do some in-person training, which we do mostly in our West Palm office, but we, at this moment, don't have anything scheduled until we kind of get this out there, and then we're going to start scheduling those training sessions to kind of help bring people in, give them more hands-on clicks, and make it easy for them, because we do have some users, I think, who are willing to do it. We have an estimator in Miami, we have a product executive on our Tampa side. They've all kind of gotten in there, made their own scenarios, which is awesome. And that's pretty much it. Wanted to thank the cmBuilder guys for bringing me out here all the way from Florida, because that was super nice. And just want to say thanks to them for making construction great again. And that's really it. If you guys have any questions,